just chat away to the lads there.
I'll chat away to the lads.
Don't
All
say
right.
anything weird.
Well, you can't leave me by myself and say, don't say anything weird. There's nobody here yet anyway. Fitz is here, but he's gone. Oh my god. He's gone to the toilet. So you're just left with me. He left the room and said, don't say anything weird. But there's no way you can leave me in a room by myself talking to people. And surely at some point, I'm going to say something weird on the camera. I mean, that's probably going to happen. Fitz is in the middle of a water cut for the Inju Jitsu competition. So we're both in the Irish Open Saturday week. I'm doing no Ghee. He's doing Ghee, but he's on for like sub 92 or the 94 kilo class. Fun thing, not fun thing. Very unfun thing about jiu-jitsu is that you have to wear your fucking Ghee when you weigh in, and your rash guard, which to a lesser extent isn't a big problem. It's still some additional weight, but it's not a huge issue. But in jiu-jitsu, you have to wear your Ghee as well.
What I don't like is more like you can buy really bougie, cheap, like light Ghees that are really expensive.
Yeah.
Cheaper Ghees tend to be more expensive.
The lighter Ghees seem to be more expensive.
Sorry, yeah.
So they don't last as long.
Yeah.
Someone in the class's pants store. The largest young fella in the class. Yeah.
He was there getting a new Ghee last night.
Ryan was there and he couldn't stop laughing at him.
The lads were taking the piss out of him last night.
But anyway, that's nonsense. And you just weigh in.
Scott Kerr's like, quick, now Fitz has gone. You have time to talk about fantasy books.
Scott, I'm rereading the Broken Empire trilogy. Mark Lawrence's, because I couldn't find anything good to read recently.
I should have stayed in the bathroom.
How many liters of water have you drink today? So Fitz is doing a trial water cut as well. So he's
Fitz is also just doing a video of him doing a water cut, so you get to see it, because loads of people were interested in the water cut video last time.
So what did you start with yesterday morning?
5 liters.
No, what weight? What was your weight? Sorry,
97.6.
97.6, and then what do you need to be? 92 point something, is it?
I have to weigh my Ghee, but around 92.
And like 5 kilos is pretty standard for people over 95 kilos.
Yeah.
For a water cut. Generally see people, even if you don't go very aggressively after the additional water loss, tend to get like 5-ish kilos. As you get lighter, then obviously the percentage of your body weight goes down.
So around 4% of your
body weight.
So
water loading is a bit of a phenomenon in regards to the in terms of scientific literature and stuff, or biological action. So the vasopressin, it doesn't really make sense that it keeps happening from what the biologists, the biochemists who are involved in this stuff say about it. So it's quite interesting. All we know is it works very well. Fitz is doing it just to test. I'm not doing it, so I'm just trying to lose some extra weight first, and then I'll do the water cut next week. But I don't want, I'd like to get a realistic representation of how much panic loss I'm having at the moment. Stress dieting, as you call it. Shock dieting. You could call it shock dieting, which involves halving your calories. And now I know.
Are you doing that?
Not half. I'm like.
You're down though.
I'm down about 500 or 600, I'd say, a day. And then obviously activities up a nice bit.
The good thing is Garth bought these jelly pots that I bought yesterday because I like eating them, but Garth doesn't like eating them. So now I get to eat Garth jelly pots.
They're 9 calories. But then I hit a nice 240 squat for lunch, literally just before this live stream. Stop moving. You make me unfocused. This is 240. That's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
I thought my ass was my back was gonna fall out my ass. But it didn't. So squat was decent. I'll keep squatting like 2 times a week at the moment, and then like lifts like once a week. Snatch 120 yesterday. First snatch in like 2 weeks ago or something.
Very
days.
good.
Yeah.
And you're getting the graw back for it.
I'm getting the graw back for it. But at the same time, I love jiu-jitsu, so it's mad, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm turning into a crossfitter, and they just can't let it go, the wads.
Oh. Okay.
All right, people are asking questions.
Okay.
Wait.
Make sure you're on live chat, not top chat.
Before we go, can everyone just like the stream? Because there's 46
Yeah.
people, and there's only 12. And you think it does make a difference, but every time you like one of our videos, even when it's not live stream videos, it does really make a difference. Especially when you click onto a video and then you immediately press like, YouTube is like,
Oh.
So when you like a video, it makes a huge difference.
Okay. Checking in, we have Scott Kerr, kind of thick, Jimmy Fenton, Marion, Fake Natty, all them saying they're here.
All greeting
us. Greetings.
Advin Gully says, what's your heaviest pull-up and or dip? The heaviest ever pull-up I've ever done is like a ring pull-up with like 8 kilos, where I was doing for reps. That's the heaviest I can remember. And since then, that was 6 years ago. Haven't done it since.
I've done a weighted pull-up with a 24 kilo kettlebell, and that's the last time I tested.
I've done a set of 37 straight bar dips.
37?
And I've done a weighted dip with like 40 kilos.
I never got into the weighted dipping, to be honest.
I got into many different because Luz Arjun was
Luz,
around the time was doing them, and everyone's getting into them. And obviously, I went after them like a fucking box of spiders aggressively and frantically. And I did it up to 40 kilos. That's when my arms were really big for no reason. And I was like,
You say, oh my God. People just know I'm on a live stream.
They actually do. They only ring around the live stream. Aaron said, just what has. No. News of Asian Games, please. Don't have any news. I hope Akbar is competing at them. And I hope...
Miso competes.
Miso beat him, yeah. And I hope... I assume Liu Xiaojun won't be doing them. But I'd like to see Tan Tiao doing them. Shi Jiang seems to be getting back into shape, back cycle as well. Oh, hey. So Akbar is my favorite one. I hope Akbar is doing them because I really want to see number one right now.
Number one.
For me, number one.
For me, number one right now.
Akbar Jarayev, favorite male lifter. I want to see doing anything competition. I want to see this steam train keep rolling.
Aaron said he totaled 301 last weekend. I saw your snatches, Aaron, but I didn't see all your clean and jerks. Well done on that. 301 is legit. Very, very good. Snatches are quite good too.
Yeah.
Your clean and jerk must have been pretty heavy. Because I think your snatch was below your old PB. But well done on that. That's phenomenal. I saw you got gold as well. So bringing home the chocolate.
Bring home the maple syrup if you're Canadian.
Ares Oosh says, morning lads. Fake Natty says,
Ares could be Aries. Or it could be Ares.
Ares would just stop. Fake Natty said, would you like to see other technical rule changes in IPF after implementing ones like the bench press? This is gonna roil some feathers.
Obviously no sumo deadlift, like our separation of the sumo deadlift.
Just fucking get rid of it. There has to be.
No, I don't think it needs to get rid of. You just have two different world records.
Oh, you have a powerlifting federation. Powerlifting. You have a federation that does a deadlift and a federation that does a sumo deadlift.
What happened right the other day was somebody pointed out all of these like influencer teens in America with like big curly mops of hair and rare chains, right? All their deadlifting like 300 kilos, and then between them they bench like 120 and they can squat like 180 low bar.
Yeah,
and it got to me. It really made me. It got to me a little bit. I actually don't care that much, but the sumo deadlift is a thing, and we've got to acknowledge that there is something. Now, I will say another thing on that though. If you comment on people's videos,
oh my God,
talking shit about the sumo deadlift, you're a fucking loser.
To be honest, if you comment on people's videos talking shit in general, you're a loser.
Yeah, 100%.
Like Michael Jordan isn't out there commenting on people's videos on Instagram.
Yeah, no, I would never call someone out for sumo deadlifting. And if someone wants to do it, I actually don't care that much. But there is something to it. I don't like to see that people talking shit though. Like for example, those like tiny teenagers who can't bench like or who can't squat more than like 160 or something, but deadlifting 300 kilos. Fair fucks them. They're getting after it. Like, they're just really limmy.
You don't believe that?
No, I do. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I know it's not a real deadlift.
You're just being nice now because you're on the live stream.
No, that's true. I genuinely feel that I don't care about them. It doesn't it's humorous, but it is interesting how far ahead their deadlift is compared to the other deadlifts.
Yeah,
it is interesting.
It is interesting.
So
In
You know.
terms of other rule changes,
Um,
I don't like.
meaningful drug testing?
I knew you'd bring that up. No, I definitely don't want to see that.
No, I don't see that either.
Andrew says when will the pants be available to purchase? In a month's time.
Yes.
In 1 month's time. Garth is just checking his correspondence now with the manufacturer. He's logging in. But yeah, around a month, 3 or 4 weeks, I would say. We're very, very happy with the pants. We're very happy the last time as well, but this time they're mwah.
Oh my god.
Hector says, "Sup lads, stand up paddleboarding to you too." Lanavir says, "Morning lads." Geez, Lanavir, it's 3:20.
3:20.
It's not the morning here.
There's a day's work instead of squats done here.
Yeah. Again, want to say, if you're loving the content, keep up the good stuff. Thank you for that.
I love you were ragging on him and he was just being nice.
Yeah, sorry, I should have read the question first. Eras Oosh says, "How do you deal with rolling with a smelly partner? Sweaty, smelly partner?" Joe, like,
we only have one, really.
the sweaty thing is just...
Doesn't bother me.
No, it's... Sweaty no Ghee is annoying because you can't get grips and you'll slip all over the place.
Because it gets you faster then, like, it's like lubricant.
It's like, it adds an extra factor to it. To be honest, sweat never bothered me, and the smelly like thing doesn't really bother me either.
The sweaty lubricant for no Ghee has never hurt me, not yet at least, touching wood. It's always been an assistance.
Joe, when it annoys me most is if I'm shooting for a single leg, or even if you're like scrambling and you're going and you want to drive forward and your feet are like slipping like a cartoon character. I hate that.
Oh yeah.
When you can't just plant your feet and drive.
It's the funny thing is, like, it's an element you have to be aware of. Like, it's a
variable.
It's a
whole thing. Like,
it's a variable in no Ghee where you have to be like sweatiness is genuinely impacting the things you will go for and how they will happen. Like, it's so funny. I don't mind it though. I never notice it. I'm sure I'm very sweaty. Now, I wouldn't be like a sweater, but I'm certainly not like, there's some people in the class, you look over them and they look like Darius right now.
I sweat a lot. Yeah.
But some people just don't sweat.
No.
Like, for the entire class. No, it doesn't bother me though that much. I've never been like, oh.
That doesn't bother me at all. I spent my entire formative years covered in mud, rolling around with other men on a rugby pitch.
It is unfortunate when you have to get in to your own car, or if you're driving your partner's car.
It's super unfortunate if you forget to bring a spare t-shirt.
Yeah.
And you have to sit in a wet t-shirt on the way home.
Yeah.
Or else you drive home topless. Okay. Sika hops. When? Not right now. There is so much other stuff we have to do.
It's honestly one of the main reasons you're not seeing Sika hops is it's a really hard program to write.
Yeah.
For the way people will be getting the program.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. The reason isn't out yet because
we just give you a program now that you can buy, but it wouldn't be
as good
as it could be.
Yeah, so that's the main reason Sika hops isn't out yet.
Sika bodybuilding when? Probably this side of Christmas.
The main priority in terms of programs right now is Sika weightlifting 2.0 because it's the main one people have been asking for. As we said recently in another video, if you want things sooner, how things get dictated on where they go on the list of things that are coming up is how many people ask for them, how frequently. Yeah. So if more people ask for them more frequently, it will genuinely just make us go, okay, that's what people want to do, so we'll prioritize that. Currently, priority number one in terms of programs is Sika weightlifting 2.0. Other things, priorities, clothes are moving really well, so they should be, we're just waiting for stuff to happen. Other priorities then is the squat book, the back squat book in particular, which is going really well and it's filling out a lot more every time. So that's like kind of the next big thing outside of the programs I would be looking to bring out.
Okay, Scott Kerr says, I got 155 kilos bench press PB last night, then starting Sika bench next week, hoping for 160.
I'd be very disappointed if you couldn't get 160 off the bench program.
S. Louis says, any tips on high rep front squats? I'm a powerlifter and have good shoulder and wrist mobility. Then you can't be a powerlifter. But get lightheaded on higher rep front squats. Okay, so that's a couple of things. Probably only two things. The first thing is a lot of time people will front squat and they'll like sit the barbell right in here and they'll literally like use the ridge of their collarbones to set the barbell into, and they'll just allow it to sit there. And they think because their elbows are up, or because they have like a cross grip, or even if they're holding the bar, just because their elbows up and they've created that shelf, you just leave it sit in against your neck. And that's really not how you want the front squat. You want a front squat with a full grip of the bar. The barbell can sit on top of your collarbones, but it shouldn't be sitting between your collarbone and your neck. That causes a massive issue. So if you have a good front squat position where you're holding onto the barbell sits across the back of your deltoid, comes across your collarbones, and then you're being active with it in the front rack, then you're not going to come into too much hassle. It's when you kind of get relaxed into this nice shelf position that the issues occur. The other thing I'd say is that a lot of people, because of its like higher rep stuff, work capacity and your actual blood sugar levels as you're doing it tends to have a massive influence. So a lot of the time with kind of younger athletes, they might have the problem where they're doing structurally the wrong thing, but then also their energy levels are quite low by the time they get through all their weightlifting, and then they go on to their front squats, and that's what's causing the problem. And then like 20 or 30 grams of sugar during the session can really, really help with that. But the main thing I think is being more active with that front rack structure. So more strict presses help with that a lot.
Nate McCormick is saying, could you dispel the cloud of bad information regarding anterior pelvic tilt and lower back position for squats? I keep finding info going back and forth about this. First thing I think you need to be aware of in regards to the second part of your question. So you say you keep finding good info going back, or keep finding info going back and forth about this. So there is a recent trend, specifically on Instagram, we don't see it on the other social medias, is these level of kind of, I'm going to call them angry physios. Andrew Huberman described them that as well, angry physios. It's quite interesting, where they're like aggressively attacking each other, making memes about each other, talking shitty about each other, quoting stuff. They'll quote one thing, they'll quote research, site research. Someone else might be a researcher themselves and doing research, and they'll talk shit about that research, say why it isn't good. And then they'll quote different research and say, well, this is much better research showing that is the case. A lot of times you'll see people will fall into camps of these angry physios camps. So they'll be talking about, they'll fall into a thing where all flexion is good all the time, under any duress, under any weight, for any amount of reps, and it's never going to be an issue. Then you'll have people who will say, look, we don't really know that yet. It's probably not a great idea. You'll see a lot of different ones of these rolling around. There's a lot in the moment. They get a lot of followings, and that kind of negative press tracks really well on social media, so just be careful in regards to who you're reading and what you're watching, and just be a little bit patient with what you're hearing and try to think about it a little bit better, or not better, but just try to think about it a little bit. It's hard to know who to trust because there isn't really great definitive answers in relation to things. In relation to anterior pelvic tilt and lower back position for squats, what we like to teach, and you'll see this, and we'll talk about a lot in the Sika Strengths Guide to Back Squat book, is that we like to see some lower back flexion at the start. So there's slight flexion, and then you are extension of flexion. So you're extension your lower back. And then as you're squatting, you're pushing your knees forward. And then depending on your build, you may need to actively keep trying to force that extension in your lower back by sending your hips backwards to keep this nice straight bar path. So that's how we teach the squat, heavily quad dominant, driving your hips backwards as you're squatting down. So we get a nice even spread. So if you think about the squat like this, the hips are going back as the knees going forward, everything comes down at this level. And then when you're driving out of the hole, you're still keeping that, or you're trying to keep this feeling of extension in your lower back. And then you're driving with your quads out at the bottom of the squat. So we teach essentially the high bar squat and the low bar variation of squat that we teach, and the kind of hybrid squat we teach people. So that's how we teach it. In terms of what it does mean for you long run, currently the best answer anyone can give you is it's up to you to take the risk on what you think is and is not a problem. Some people reckon that excessive repetitions of the lower back going through a lot of flexion, so through outside of the normal range of flexion in your lower back when you're squatting, will have consequences down the road. No one is definitively shown yet either way, I think, if we're being honest about it. However, absence of evidence doesn't mean that's a good reason to go about and do it. Some people definitely have pain when their lower back flexes when they're squat. Lots of people don't have pain when their lower back flexes during squat. There does seem to be evidence that your back does go through some amount of flexion when you're squatting, regardless of what you do, which is fine. But there is normal ranges. Typically what we see is we see people with a huge amount of butt wink in the bottom of the squat. It's usually indicative. Thank you, Fitz. Indicative of issues elsewhere, whether that be ankle mobility, poor positioning, poor proprioceptive awareness, poor hip mobility, poor upper body control, poor proprioception of the entire squat of where your body's throughout the positions. In general, it doesn't lead to the most powerful squat. Now, I'm not saying this for everyone, but in general, you do see people with a lot of butt wink have issues elsewhere. It's usually an indicator. It's not usually typically an issue itself. So that's how we teach the squat. If you don't want to get better, if you have kind of some kind of butt wink or something like that, and you don't have issues with it, and you think you'll be fine, you have no lower back pain, that's no problem. That's totally up to you. Look elsewhere, look at the other things. Look at your hip mobility, look at your ankle mobility, look at how your squat is progressing. Does it meet good technical parameters? Does it look correct? And if it meets all these and you still have butt wink, then, you know, the final decision is on you what you want to do with that one. We do like to see a little bit of it. You'll see a lot of weightlifting schools will teach that lower back extension at the start and trying to keep it throughout the whole squat. And that's primarily to keep your torso as upright as possible, to keep that lower back in a good position. Carry over as well to the lifts, where you want to be keeping as much lower back extension as possible in the bottom of the squat. And so you'll see that carry over to the back squat and how the back squat is done, and the front squat to a lesser extent. So in your regards, land to your lower back position for squat. So I hope that answers your question to a certain extent, Nate. Yeah, try not to get caught up too much in the negativity of the angry physios.
Yakatsuki. I fucking nailed that.
Nailed it.
Hey guys, question. I play soccer. What are some times I need to hit to be considered a fast player to compete professionally? Example, 100-meter time. 100-meter professional soccer player or professional soccer players are doing what?
You've got the soccer.
Yeah. They're not this fast, but 100 meters in sub 11 seconds. There's multiple ones doing.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
I think you need to be in the. If you want to be a professional soccer player and you want to be considered fast as a professional soccer player, definitely 11 seconds for 100 meters is it. You would want to be, and this comes across as like, don't take this the wrong way, but Yakatsuki, if you want to be a professional soccer player, you'd want to be the fastest person you've ever met.
Is it really 11 seconds? That's astounding.
There was like 15 people under 11 seconds.
In what?
On a list. I just looked up.
So the average is probably, well, yeah.
I would say mid 11 to 12 seconds.
Even mid 11s is fast.
If you want to be a professional athlete of any type, if you want to be a professional rugby player, you would want to be the strongest person you've ever met. If you wanted to be a professional hockey player, you would want to be the fastest person you've ever met, because professional contracts just aren't easy to come across. Yeah, you would. 11 seconds. Yeah. There was a 10.49 as well on that list. So very, very fast. If you consider, because a lot of time people will make the mistake and they'll see like Olympic sprinter times, or they'll see national team sprint times, and they'll say, okay, but they're a full-time sprinter, they're on the national team. I don't think a soccer player's numbers are going to tally up against that. Professional soccer players make so much more money than athletics competitors that if you're fast enough to be a 100-meter sprinter, it's very likely you'll be very talented at other sports if you play that other sport. So a lot of the actual really fast sprinters will go in and play other sports. You know, like it's not necessary that you're missing out on world records by having these people playing other sports, but in the same way where a lot of very strong and powerful people will go into the NFL instead of going into the USA track and field setup, the same thing will happen with other sports.
I would not have said 11 seconds. Wonder what's that translate to a 40-yard dash? Because I know like 4.5s are kind of like super fast for 40-yard dashes.
Sure.
Vesquick said, how would you guys handle going back into program training after a 1-week break, illness, or holiday? But it depends. If it's a holiday, I would hope that your training was planned and that you were ready to finish before the holiday.
Why are you going on holidays?
Well, like ideally, if you're going on holidays, you shouldn't be kind of doing a mid-block. Ideally, you plan to peak before your holidays and then come back and go training again. If it's just a holiday, then really generally like regressing like maybe 2 or 3 weeks is probably a good answer, and you're probably okay. The illness really depends on the magnitude of your illness. So if you've been seriously sick, would be a big issue. So if you're very, very sick, it could be an entirely new training block, and regressing isn't the answer. You might have to do entirely different kind of training. But if you've just been a little bit sick and you're trying to come back, then regressing like 2 or 3 weeks again is probably the answer. Probably like 2 weeks or so, maybe a little bit more if needs be, depending on where it was. For example, if it was the week before peak week, then regressing 2 weeks probably isn't going to work that well, but it might be worth a shot. If it's in the middle of a volume phase and you're like 4 weeks out of 12 weeks or something, going back 2 weeks is perfectly fine. But it really, really depends on how ill you actually got.
Daniel Clemens asking, how's it going? It's going quite well. I'm drinking quite a lot of water. So
you're getting there.
Yeah. Feel very hydrated. Okay.
Your face feels really full.
Miguel Lavaro says, hey lads, got to test clean and jerk this past weekend, hit 160. Nice. Hoping to hit 125 in the snatch at 89 body weight by October. Just wanted to update. Thanks for all the help. That's great work. Well done.
Thanks, Miguel.
Very, very good.
Well
Daniel Clemens says he's checking in from his hike. He's done in 13 days. 430 kilometers done in 13 days. That's a legit hike.
I love he added the 690 meters as well.
Yeah.
There's a hike in I saw in the Highlands of Scotland. Takes about 5 or 7 days. And you'd like, I don't know where it starts. So
I'd like all of them.
Yeah.
There's only one thing better than hiking. That's hiking with a rifle.
And shooting things on the way.
Oh no. We're
again.
back.
2 seconds. Please. Okay, I think we're back, are we?
We're back?
Are we back?
Could you just, if a few people could like the video just so we see
or just say,
some regular likes.
Just say if we're back.
We're back. Okay, we're back. Perfect. Erico Oliveira says, regarding feet forward squat, is more ankle flexion the main thing you should be looking at in order to increase range of motion? I've no problem hitting depth with a more open stance, but with feet forward, it's like my hips run out of room to descend. It's almost certainly more ankle mobility is what you need to look at. Also, you might get to the point where, depending on your leverages, your knees might be going very far forward over the toes. You might have a massive amount of ankle mobility, and then you will just run into the point where your hamstrings will run into your calves, your quads will run into your stomach, and you'll feel like there's this blockage at your hips that you can't get any lower than. That's perfect. You don't necessarily, you might feel like you can get deeper, get your ass closer to the floor with a wider stance. You don't really, you just want to get down nice and deep into the squat. I always prefer feet to be closer to further forward than pointed out to the side. Just wide stance, toed out squats just aren't good. In the same way where narrow stance, toed out squats aren't good either.
But remember, you don't necessarily have to do the toes forward, You just assess it, see if it feels really good for you. Is it the strongest position? How does it feel in regards to your squats? You don't have to do it. For some people, it suits them very well, and there's people, it's not the best, So just have a little assessment.
A little look-see.
Yeah, I don't have to do it. Dr. Demographic is saying, coming back from an injury, I need to lose 10 plus kilos, but don't want to lose too much muscle mass. 3 pitch sessions a week, doesn't leave much room for hypertrophy. Should I just focus on my strength numbers? No, the answer here is still focusing on the hypertrophy work. So if you still have obviously 3 pitch sessions, it's a lot of stuff to get done. In general, we recommend when people are cutting weight, your priority is to maintain as much muscle mass. Of course, strength training does preserve some muscle mass, but hypertrophy focused style training preserves more muscle mass than that, and it helps you burn a little bit more calories. The only problem here is that obviously 3 pitch sessions, you're going to be quite fatigued, and you want to make sure that you're not overly fatiguing yourself in terms of like injury risk, or to a lesser extent, but still possibility is overtraining risk, but that's very unlikely. It takes quite a bit of time. So I would prioritize hypertrophy work. Probably 2 sessions a week should be enough. Maybe an upper and lower session if you can afford it, and Jimmy rig it around those pitch sessions and keep the lower body session as far away from your next training session as possible. So if you have a pitch session on Friday, try to do your lower body session like Saturday morning or something, And then I assume you're training in like Monday evening would be the priority. So prioritize hypertrophy work, and strength work isn't a major concern here, because strength work will come back to an extent when you focus on strength again in the future. But maintenance of hypertrophy or maintenance of muscle mass is the priority. So hypertrophy is the main thing you should be focusing on.
Okay. Jimmy Fenton says, is there much benefit to snatch for a rugby player out half when you're already doing cleans? The fact that Jimmy spells Jimmy, just the name Jimmy Fenton, and the fact that he's an out half, I just hope you're a Kiwi. I really hope that. Jimmy Fenton. So no, there's no need for snatches. To be honest, I don't think snatch is a good exercise for athletes in general to be doing. It's too technical. It's too difficult and too wearing on the body to be doing high reps at meaningful or like volume at. It's just not a good tool. It'll be like, oh, can I hammer in this nail with the back of a vice grip? Yes. Is it better if I use a hammer? Yes. So no, I don't think there's any benefit to doing it. And it's not like the thing of like learning the clean, where you're like, oh, learning the clean takes a long time. Should I do it? Yes, the clean takes a long time to learn. It has a bit of an injury risk associated with it, but it's still worth it learning it, and you'll benefit from learning of it. But for me, the snatch is just a kind of passion project for rugby players if they're doing it. And if coaches have you doing it, I think a lot of time it's the same kind of a passion project for the coach.
A lot of times for rugby players, they do not have the shoulders to do snatches, and they will never have the shoulders while they're playing rugby to do any kind of snatches.
No.
For some track and field athletes, sometimes like a hang snatch is very, very useful, or can be useful if they're a talented athlete and they can do a bit of weight in it, like throwers, javelin throwers, discus, shot put, stuff like that. Some of them would benefit from hang snatches if it's heavy weights with straps, but that's what the prerequisite of they're able to do those heavy weights and get up to those heavy weights with straps and do it heavy enough. There's a meaningful effect. Do a good enough technique that it's safe and has meaningful effect, and do it fast enough that it has a meaningful effect. So there's a lot of prerequisites for those kind of things to do them. So I never really see rugby players in general, number of shoulder spikes they get and smashed and stuff. It's just rare that you'll ever see a rugby player who can do snatches with benefit and snatches in a safe manner that doesn't really hurt them. It doesn't really, no need for it. Power cleans and clean pulls and stuff like that are more than adequate of other plyometrics for rugby. Philip Sundstrom is saying, if you got to organize a contest to measure the fittest people on earth, how would you structure it? I feel like it's a trick question.
So the CrossFit Games markets itself as like finding the fittest people on earth, but I don't think that's strictly true, because they measure across a broad remit of events, but you tend to just find that like a particular body shape of person, 5'5" to 5'7" at around 80 to 90 kilos is just like the best. But that person doesn't thrive in almost any sport.
But when they get them running, or when they get them cycling or swimming,
yeah, that's what I mean. Like it doesn't. Most sports will select away from that kind of body style of really dense, small people who can just do reps really quickly. Like decathlon, which would be 100-meter long jump, shot put, high jump, 400, and then 100-meter or 110-meter hurdles, discus, pole vault, javelin, and a 1500. I think you could definitely take some events from that. I think you have to have a 100-meter sprint in there.
I don't think you do. I think it's, when you say fitness, you either mean in the sports science term fitness in regards to like how fit is an athlete for any given sport, ready for their event, which is not what we mean here. We mean fitness in terms of like endurance, aerobic capacity.
Yeah.
And that's marathon or Ironman or triathlon. That's what that is to me.
Yeah.
One of those.
I think triathlon or Ironman being the...
That's probably the best. It's who.
But then what do you consider fitness to be? Is it just aerobic?
Yeah.
Or is fitness your readiness for the current situation where you'd have aerobic and some strength and some explosive?
That's what I'm saying about fitness in relation to. But that's not what we mean here. Everyone knows when you say fitness,
it's that guy's lungs.
That guy's really fit.
He's really fit.
They don't go, do you know what? I bet he's playing metrics and he is like, javelin is really good.
But he's really strong too.
Nobody means that though.
Yeah.
If there was like
fittest on earth, you are talking about a long triathlon type event.
Now, if you were like the most athletic person on earth,
then
that would be different. I think you'd have to have like a little short run, have to have some jumping.
yeah, I think
some kind of
100 meters,
yeah.
high jump probably rather than long jump. Because high jump, you then also have a body weight component to it where they can't be massive.
Mm-hmm.
So 100 meters, high jump, 1500 meters, like the mile.
No,
I think that should be in there.
Why would the mile be in that athletic test? Athletic talent.
Because it's grueling, like.
No, so that's irrelevant to the athletic talent test.
Also, it's in every other pentathlon, modern decathlon, all these things.
That's
what would you have in it?
Not the mile. Why would you have?
What distance would you have?
The 100 meters and jumping is enough. Why would you have a mile?
100 meters and jumping. No test of strength.
No, obviously, but in terms of like running and stuff like that, why would you want?
Because then there's no fitness, like.
But that's what we're saying athletic.
Athleticism.
Yeah, that's why.
I think you do need some level of fitness for athleticism. I'd cut it to like a 400 or an 800 even.
Maybe a 400. I'd settle for a 400.
But there's a load of like throwers who are well able to do a couple of 400s, but are drastically unfit in the aerobic sense.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant to their athletic talent. Like, if you're looking for the most...
Just sheer athleticism.
Yeah, I don't think the mile should be in there. Like, I know you have a thing about the mile now, right? But just we have
No, I think you'd have to have some sort of...
I take 400. 100 meter and 400. Or 60 meter and 400 are probably better spread. Fast 60 meter, fast 400.
Yeah.
Some kind of jumping. Maybe not high jump, but something like a vertical jump would probably be a good test. Probably back squat. In terms of strength, like full depth back squat, if well, however you'd figure that out. I think the back squat has to be in there.
I'd probably have the back squat as the only measure of strength, like the only strength piece in there.
Would you? Yeah, I think back squat is the best one.
You could do 50 meter, 400 meter,
yeah,
high jump,
yeah,
and back squat.
Yeah. I think that's be some kind of hand-eye coordination, some kind of something that involves him doing something. Like, because there's a lot of lads who can do backflips who can't kick a soccer ball, like, do you know?
Yeah.
So, like, there has to be something, like, that involves hand-eye coordination, because you can't. So some lads will get away there, like with they'll just fly by where they'll be like, geez, they're really fast and strong, you know.
Yeah.
But then if you shoot a ball at them, it'd be like this, you know?
Oh my god.
So I think there has to be something there where it's like...
Yeah, you have to be able to play like 40 minutes of junior B football.
Max reps with ping pong.
Max reps?
Yeah, as many in a minute. Or as many as you can go before the ball drops.
But then that, yeah.
I think that's it. 50 meters, 400 meters, back squat, high jump, max AMRAP ping pong against the wall by yourself before the ball hits the ground. Name more athletic tests than that.
The ping pong one doesn't do it for me.
What else do you do? Yo-yo.
Well, if it's an event, they play ping pong against each other.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That's the thing. You have it as an event. They race each other. They jump against each other. Squat against each other.
And horseshoe throwing.
And play ping pong against each other.
Horseshoe throwing as well.
Not horseshoe throwing.
No, because that's a solo event.
No, there's 70-year-olds living in the south of England who are like professional horseshoe tossers.
But there's no horseshoe tossers who squat 250 at like 80 kilo body weight, you know?
And you can't have an intense game of horseshoe tossing against each other.
Yeah, you can.
No, I want to see ping pong like...
Listen, what if you get a gas torch you heat up the horseshoe, so they have to do it fast. So it's literally as fast as you can.
No, because imagine it's stuck to their hand. It's like...
Didn't throw fast enough? And obviously, there would be zero drug testing.
No. Well, you'd test them just to make sure they were on drugs.
No, I think ping pong against each other at minimum, but like including horseshoe throwing.
I think one-on-one basketball against each other.
Oh, that's a good one.
That'd
actually.
Be sick.
No, that'd be a great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like European handball 1v1.
Yeah.
Maybe basketball.
We can't play European handball 1v1 because you're not allowed to take any steps.
There's takedowns.
Okay, that's just two people throwing balls from across the hall. Okay. Andrew asks, if you only had 5 minutes to warm up for squats, what would it look like?
Squats.
Just squats.
Yeah, but I would make a habit of it.
No. I just don't bother warming up for squats. How important? My God, another phone call yet again. How important is speed for beginners in the clean?
Speed is like relative,
Yeah,
so that's like how fast relative to elite weightlifter do you need to be? Not that fast. Do you need to be faster than?
you need some speed.
Yeah.
You can't deadlift it up to your hip and expect to pull under. I think people get mistaken because they'll say, like a lot of coaches will slow people down. They'll say, you must slow down your first pull. So your first pull is correct. And then you can go from there. And then people get kind of caught up or they get annoyed because they think they should be going faster. And speed will get you away. Like you can get away with a lot of technical misfortunes or technical trip ups by just being fast enough in the same way where you can if you're just strong enough. So I get it. A lot of time the beginner will want to go back and so their coach would have slowed them down. They'll want to go back and be faster and be faster and be faster because they feel better. They feel like they can do more weight, which they can when they're pulling on the barbell faster. But you do need to make sure that the actual motor pattern or the biomechanics of the lift are correct before you bring that speed in.
Pablo 2004, who we can learn through social engineering's birth year was probably 2004, so now we need his home address and we can figure out how the hack is.
Yeah, what's the name of your first pet, Pablo?
Mother's maiden name. Opinion on doing only front squats and not doing back squats at all for a big lifting. It's a terrible idea. It's something it's come up a lot.
Yeah.
And it keeps coming up, it comes up frequently over the years. The idea is that like you want to be as specific as possible for weightlifting. So would it not make sense just to do front squats? The answer to that is you can do it if you're on so much performance enhancing drugs and you've already had a big front squat that it doesn't matter for you. We see like the Italians do a lot of front squats and very little back squats. The Kazakhstan team do a lot of front squats and very few back squats and don't push those numbers a lot. And the reason for that is in their minds, you just need a certain level of front squat and you don't need that big back squat. Why most other people don't follow that kind of train of thought and why it doesn't really work for most amateur lifters or any amateur lifters really is that when you're trying to improve your front squat, the best way to improve your front squat is actually by increasing your back squat. If your back squat goes up, your front squat will go up with it. Improving your front squat in isolation, if you're in any way trained, is very, very difficult. The heavier weights for the back squat make it so much more productive for your quads to be loaded. So then improve your back squat brings up your front squat alongside it, but it doesn't really work vice versa. And front squat by itself, of course, it will go up to a certain extent, but it's not the answer. And I wouldn't waste your time, Pablo. It's a thing people think about a lot, but it just isn't. It's not the way. Iverty said, "Hit them likes Sika Stanleyans."
Yeah, right.
Said, "Best way to improve the beep test, or is it just run more? Garda post-cycle therapy in 7 weeks." Hey, and is still struggling with it.
I think when it's in 7 weeks, you can have a bit of a plan leading into it. You probably shouldn't be doing like too many 5Ks and stuff, but you could certainly do like 1K repeats. Like 5 1K repeats would be very valuable for this. Then start cutting it down to 400-meter repeats, 200-meter repeats. Obviously, the beep test is so slow, but where people fall down in the beep, so short. Where people fall down, though, isn't in the fact that they're not fast enough to get there. It's in the fact that their work capacity is so slow, but that by the time they have to be fast to make it back by the next beep, they're breaking down. So I think if you have 7 weeks, just less than 2 months, I'd start off by doing probably 2-3 Ks a week and then do one beep test or interval running piece with short distances. Maybe make it to 20 meters though. A nice hard session of that every week. Then over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks, those 3Ks become 1K repeats, 800-meter repeats, and just do that for another few weeks. Then those 800s and 1Ks will become 100-meter or 400s and 200s, then 100s and 50s. And then you build up a vast volume of that. And it should be that in the last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks, so the third last and second last week before you do the beep test, you should be doing 3 interval sessions per week where you're just focusing on short distance, doing a lot of volume in there, controlling the rest periods and going from there. But the Garda test, from I understood that the things were quite low, so it should definitely be something you should hit. Connor, if you have problems with it, just email us and we'll kind of lay it out for you a small bit.
Our jiu-jitsu professor is a firefighter, and he was in the beep test, and everyone else had stopped, and they made him stop because he was still going. They wanted to go home.
He's a beast.
Um,
Any word on the podcast coming back? We'll do a podcast.
Yeah, we've been talking about the shit talks again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something come up the last few weeks. A lot of people, weird enough, in the last 2 weeks have been asking us to bring them back, and it's just something we haven't prioritized. But I think maybe we might get one done this week.
Mm-hmm.
We might get back into it. It's something we've been talking about recently a lot. Do you want to pick a few questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Mark B saying, I'm a long distance open water swimmer. What are some of the compound lifts I should focus on during off season? So if you look at a lot of the swimming stuff, and even for the longer distance things, they'll come up with plyometrics a lot. But that comes from kicking off the start in the initial position. So if we kind of remove that, you're not kicking off anything in open water. A lot of stuff you'll see is like upper back stuff, midline stuff, and I would still focus on squatting as well, to a certain extent, for the kind of the benefits you get from squatting. But upper back and shoulder issues, so anything that helps bring down your arms, so for the propulsion through water, so your lats are like internal rotators of your shoulders, so working your lats a lot, mid back, a lot of rowing, any thoracic stuff, back extensions, main posture throughout the water. You still want strong legs, glutes and stuff like that to maintain that posture and that kind of straight line in the water as much as possible. So I'd be looking at upper back stuff, so barbell rows, dumbbell rows, seal rows, pull-ups, weighted pull-ups, a lot of stuff for shoulder health, so range of motion, shoulder or cars, so controlled active range of motion or something. We'll be looking at maybe a little bit of bench pressing.
I think so.
Maybe a bench pressing.
I think 180 kilo bench would do you very well.
Would be sweet. Maybe not 180. And then I look at high bar squats as well, and a lot of midline stuff as well. A lot of core things would be the sweet stuff.
Robert Kavanagh said, how impressed were you lads with how Gordon Ryan steamrolled through his competition at ADCC? Gear or no gear, he's a freak. I was unbelievably impressed. That level of dominance. Nobody in the world can talk. Like, dominance in a sporting field is very, very rare. It's kind of once in a generational thing where you have somebody who's just untouchable. Like, you would have seen it with a couple of rugby players in the last 2 decades. You would have seen, like, arguably Johnny Wilkinson and Brian O'Driscoll were 2 players who, at their prime, were untouchable. They were the best in the world. Ilian, untouchable, the best in the world.
Ono
Shoshe.
Handful of athletes.
Usain Bolt. And what you have with Gordon is you've somebody who's just utterly untouchable now and is kind of building this legacy with every step he takes. He's a phenomenally long unbeaten spell, which is pretty much unheard of in jiu-jitsu. It's absolutely crazy. And then the gear and no gear thing isn't a factor for me at all. Obviously, we don't care full stop, but also there's probably nobody in that competition clean.
Probably the Rubatolo brothers.
Probably 98% of people in that competition are clean. So the gear and no gear thing in jiu-jitsu doesn't really make a difference. He's asking how many days a week is your combat athlete program. So it's 4 days a week for 10 weeks. A lot of people run it 3 days a week for 15 weeks. No. 13 weeks. So you can just take that extra day and you bump it on and you prolong the training cycle. So that's answers your question.
He's never going to do it, but I'd love to see if Gordon went back to the Ghee, because he's obviously better than everyone right now in no Ghee jiu-jitsu. But he lost a few times to some notable people in the Ghee back in the day. So I'd really like to see if he come back and round it out and then be as dominant in the Ghee in jiu-jitsu. Not a lot of people seem to care about that much. They don't talk about it too much, but that would be very interesting for me because obviously right now he's the best in no-gi. Well, I think he's very good for jiu-jitsu because he brings up everyone else's level. And for like I was saying, there's definitely some 15-year-old right now who's training in some random gyms anywhere in the world. You've no idea where. And he's going to be the Gordon Ryan beater. He doesn't know it yet. Gordon doesn't know it yet. But the dude is watching ADCC's weekend at home. His mom said him go to bed. And he's all he can think about is doing more jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So he's out there somewhere, you know, and I think that's great for jiu-jitsu.
Zach asks, Unwil Gwaelga Gwiv, Tal Gwaelga Gwyn, Tom Leafa.
A couple of people asking about weightlifting 2.0. It's been noted. Well, from footage you've seen or otherwise, would you like to give an opinion on which rugby team is strongest?
South Africa.
South Africa, they're a big juicy team.
Do
you know who are like
South Africa, and then some of the French club teams are massive.
Yeah. In terms of just country teams, I'd have to put South Africa.
100%.
England are probably close up there. I bet you their numbers are probably close to South Africa because they're a lot of the team are big. A lot of their team. New Zealand are probably some of the weakest looking at them.
New Zealand made a conscious effort though to become smaller players and increase the pace of the game. I still think in the next 10 years you could see that paying off for them.
I don't know. Have they kind of regressed a little bit? A lot of their newer
they have, but that's just due to talent on the team. Like
a lot of the team are getting, the newer lads seem to be getting a bit bigger again.
Yeah. It's an interesting conundrum because the game of rugby is going to change soon.
Why?
It's going to change because there's way too many people getting knocked the fuck out. And they'll make the game different. Like, they'll alter the game of rugby. And whether it'll be altered through teams make a decision to become faster and more difficult and more offensive versus a team that's slower and very defensive, whether that'll make the change or whether it'll be a rule change. Like I doubt they'll make the size of the pitch bigger, but they might reduce the amount of subs you can have per game, the amount of changes you can make per game, or they might reduce the amount of players on the field, something along those lines. I can't really see. Like the arms race of just people getting bigger and bigger and bigger has stopped, essentially.
Do you know who's quite a few of the New Zealand team are noticeably unjuicy? Like aggressively not juicy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're not on gear, but they're very distinctly not juicy, you know. Steve Thompson at one point was trying to sue the English Rugby Union in relation to all the head injuries he's had, you know. So that stuff is evolving. So it remains to be seen what will happen. But I would say South Africa or England are probably across the board, like for our average player, are probably the strongest.
Yeah. And then you get some weird outliers as well. Like the USA rugby team would be very, very strong, but they're just not good at rugby. You know, don't make the mistake just because somebody's really strong that they'd be ever good. Okay. Zachariah P says, what to do if you're ill and you can't meet what your program requires of you. So the number one thing you need to do if you're ill or recovering from illness or whatever is you need to stop training. The only thing training will do is make you worse. The only thing training will do, or the only other thing will follow on from that is you'll prolong your illness. So anything like an upper respiratory tract infection, any sort of gastrointestinal upset, training is not good for that, and you shouldn't be doing it. Particularly with the respiratory tract stuff, it's very likely you'll exacerbate your symptoms quite severely if you start doing aerobic work while doing it. So if you're ill, you shouldn't be training full stop. And then coming back from training, you should just be doing that kind of standard thing of if you missed a week, regress a week. If you missed 2 weeks, regress 2 weeks. If you miss more than 2 weeks, go back and start the cycle again.
Zach David Abyss is saying, my wife is trying to come back to rugby after pregnancy, plan to run off-season athlete program, but there's no strength numbers, basic progressions now, but how should she figure that out? Numbers before running it. There's a lot to coming back to training after pregnancy. The best thing to do would be, before you get to any of our programs, would be to reach out And there's a lot of people who do postpartum training. There's a lot of Instagram pages you can buy their programs. I'll just see. I actually have a list of them there somewhere. If you go to them and you can buy programs to get coached with them, because the training you need to get back is a lot different to the training you kind of need for rugby, but there are certain things you need to do in the meantime. So there's like Get Mom Strong, Brianna Battles, and Helen Keebley Physio are all people who do a lot of like postpartum training. So if she's really fresh from it and she hasn't done those things, then I definitely get on those things first before you get in your program. If she's like back to baseline and everything's great, she could actually just run the off-season program, right? But just start everything from like ground zero. So like literally as light as possible, barbell, fucking 5 kilo dumbbell, whatever it is, however high or low her strength numbers are, and then just run it through. But then each week progress a little bit. So add a little bit more each week. So if she starts off with the barbell 1 week on the snatch grip RDLs, next week if she can add 5 kilos for same sets and reps, or for the week 2 sets and reps, then do those. And then if the next week she can add 10 kilos, do those. You know, starts off with 30 kilos in those, 40 kilos, whatever it is. Just add the progressions, you know, start off with basics. Then she can run the program again with a little bit better idea of what she has. I'd run block 1 again twice. So go back and run it again. Run with higher numbers than last time. So start a little bit higher, or start with the same numbers and take bigger jumps. So preferably start a little bit higher numbers and progress from week to week. So I'll give you about 8 weeks of stuff. And then she'll be able to run block 2 again. There might be some things she hasn't done before and is unsure of, so just run those. All of these will be super productive for her training, especially if she's very new to strength training. As you're saying, she has no strength numbers right now. All of this will be super productive, and she'll get a lot out of the program. She'll just scale it all back accordingly, keep the same number of days, sets, and reps and stuff if she has the time to do them, and you should be golden. But make sure she's done the postpartum stuff done, because there's a lot of abdominal work you need to do and other stuff to make sure it's all okay. So before you go running one of the off-season programs.
Blind Boy. I hope this is Blind Boy. I don't think it is. I doubt it is. Blind Boy asks, which sport would be best bang for your buck for Ireland to invest in for international results? I think Ireland are doing a phenomenal job of divvying up their kind of spending at the moment. Track and field, like athletics, are doing very, very well on the kind of European scene. So I wouldn't change whatever they're doing now. I certainly don't think weightlifting or something along those lines would be good for Ireland to invest in. Anything where you need large scale systematic doping or the ability to pass tests massively for an entire team isn't where you need to go. I think the athletics route they're going at the moment is pretty good. I also think there's a number of smaller sports that people think should get investment that really don't bring home results, you know. So like there's sports like badminton out there that people would say, oh, they get very little funding from the Sport Ireland. They should really get funding because they'll go to major international competitions or whatever, but it might only be 1 or 2 athletes. And what international investment in sport looks like is you putting grassroots things in place where every child in every town in Ireland gets money, you know, or gets facilities to play that sport. And that's what you see with rugby, that's what you see with soccer, that's what you see with GA, that's what you see with multiple sports where they get a lot of money pumped into them. And that's the problem why the smaller sports like weightlifting and all these things don't get money, because it's not widely available to everyone. And it'll be like me paying tax money that would only get put into a road that's private that only a few people could drive on. Obviously, when you're doing large scale investments, it has to be accessible to everyone. Then Cormac says, a phenomenal job. Rowing is Ireland's best Olympic sport and its yearly budget is 600k. The UK spends £38 million a year, We did better than at the Olympics. Yeah,
I was
I think that shows how phenomenal a job they're doing.
I was gonna say 600K is like a lot, but no.
Like
the UK are notorious for shuttling shitloads of money into their sports, even
Yeah.
compared to other countries.
that's just because we don't invest a lot of money in sport. You know, like they do a great job of divvying it up and getting very good results from very little money and very little athletes.
Yeah.
So
generic username, I definitely will be. I will squat 300 kilos or more at some point, but it just depends when I wanted to go for it.
he is right. It will be a great promo for the squat program.
Yeah, great promo. He's dead right. Andrew said the fasciopathy is that foot, but flying down to the got fasciopathy is that foot. They signed out to his coach. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Andrew. And he said, well done on the run, Darren.
Thanks very much.
Don't congratulate him.
Right. We better go. We'll talk to you all again soon. When will we be back, Garth?
Maybe this week. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for all your questions.
We really appreciate you tuning in. If before you logged off, you could like the video, we'd massively appreciate it.